So I'll open I'll open it now to questions. We've got the roving mic, I think.
Thank you. So I think most of the applications that we have are sort of pragmatic designs where it wasn't considered to me too much of a problem to have sort of an open label approach to it. But I know of at least one trial that did that and basically had a way of delivering, for example, antibiotics with placebo, sort of in a box where you can take like them just in order, in the correct order, and then basically once you get to the end of your duration, you still keep getting pills and you just don't know that they're placebo from that time on. So that's one possibility. Of course, there are other settings in which it would be much more difficult to do that. But yeah, I think it's possible. It's probably not that different, this sort of aspect, to what it would be in a standard trial. So if I'm comparing two different durations, it's going to be a problem no matter what, in a sense. So yeah.
Question, the gentleman in red.
Well, I'll try and shout.
Oh, big voice. Okay, so yeah, that's a very good question. So I think, so first of all, the point you make is exactly right. So the reason why we need to do these things this way is because we are working with treatments that are already been licensed. So we have to really worry about non-inferiority. And of course, that means we need much larger number than for standard, for example, continuous assessment methods at phase 2 trials. So I do agree with you that probably part of the problem is that we need to assess this, the way we evaluate treatments and the way we give, sort of we find what is the optimal duration or dose of treatment even early on. But this means that, for example, we should change perhaps the paradigm that is often used. For example, most trials, at least for most treatments, the paradigm that is still used is that of the maximum tolerable dose. And this, of course, works quite well for some drugs, but it might not work that well for other drugs. Yeah, I mean, in terms of how we could adapt this specific design to sort of the challenges of early phase trials, I would say, probably, so we have a couple of applications where we did use this design earlier on in the drug development. And of course, there are differences because with much smaller numbers, for example, fractional polynomials might not work as well, if you want to say something technical. I mean, in terms of analysis choices that you have to make and in terms of design choices, surely there is an impact in doing this earlier on in the drug development phase, I would say. So yeah, it's a challenge. For early phase trials, there has been quite a lot of work that has been done with continual assessment method, for example, and other similar designs. So I would say most of what we have talked about today really applies to the late phase setting. And I think that there are quite a lot of situations where we will still have to do these trials, because some of these trials are actually on treatments that have been known to be effective for a long time. And for a lot of these treatments, we still need to find what is the optimal way of administering them, I would say.
Could I just comment as well about that? I think there's a political component of in the US, say the FDA, beginning to mandate optimization work for new drugs in the world, say, of cancer treatments, so that some of this optimization is done. There's conditional licensing, or it's done at the time of licensing when it's appreciated that the way the drug has been developed and perhaps the sort of pivotal trials might result in over usage. And I mean, it's perhaps philosophical, but in the UK, through the way we fund cancer drugs and the Cancer Drugs Fund, there is scope to do that as well. And I know, Peter Clark at the Cancer Drugs Fund and the NHR are interested in this sort of work. So I think there are design issues, but there's also then kind of political and legislative reasons why these should be done. And I think those conversations are ongoing, because it does seem difficult in a way that you've got sort of commercial drug development, and then it's left to the sort of academic communities to try and design and run the trials that then optimise them, and it pits the two against each other, whereas a more collaborative approach would be better. So I think there's scope for more of that in perhaps the late stage trials that lead to approval, but we can only do that by advocating and by demonstrating.
Question over there.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you partially responded to what I was about to ask. Actually, I think that's the center of the discussion, is who we are trying to convince. In a way, it's an invitation to rethink the non-inferiority framework. With a medium, put first to reduce the sample size, and then B, to approach continuously, the benefit of the treatment between different conditions. But what would be the uptake of EMA and FDA with that? I think because it's a change of metric for them presenting things this way. I'm thinking out loud, but both of them, and NICE probably have them, they have some qualification opinion. You can go present the method and say, look, that's another metric. Well, all there's fractional polynomials. People, I think, would be very interested. You would have a lot of feedback from that. Equally, you could argue, are they the right person? Because if the drug is already marketed, are they really the right person we need to talk to? Maybe it's just nice, if the drug is already on the market, because there's maybe an opportunity there. And I'm just thinking out loud, but I think that's why this key is if we want to move away from the non-inferiority framework, there needs to be some form of blessing of the methodology from the people who would eventually take the decision around that. Thank you.
Thank you. I wondered, Duncan, whether you wanted to say anything more about the self-funding trials, because that's, I think, a really interesting aspect of this. Not only perhaps is there an academic priority for us to develop these kind of designs and implement them, but actually it helps with the financing. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Absolutely. I mean, just to come back to that prior point, there's a very good paper on near equivalence that Ian Tannock, a very provocative piece a couple of years ago in the JCO that talks to this about what do we mean by non-inferiority in terms of yes, optimizing treatment. But yes, so in terms of self-funding, I mean, if you just, as any of you who, and most of you do, I'm sure, when you run clinical trials and you have to put your SOICAT forms in that is all this, the sequence of costs for any trial, and you have to put into that the drug cost as well. So Refine, even just running the pilot arms of Refine, each cohort saves £5 million in drug costs, drug and treatment costs for the NHS sort of list price. So just running the first stages of Refine pays for itself many times over, not prejudicing what the actual results are, of course. So there are, again, the conversations about this within the UK and within the NIHR, looking for opportunities for these sorts of studies, both, again, as an exemplar, but also to actually save real money. And I think for many of the opportunities, you can also argue you're clearly saving patients time and effort, but often side effects as well. And I've shied away from that when it comes to immunotherapy, because we know so little about what mediates the side effects of immunotherapy, and they seem quite stochastic. And if you're arguing that you're maintaining an immune response, I think it's hard to say you would diminish side effects, although it's possible. But yeah, so one of the Dutch studies that I just quickly flashed up is a Dutch lung study, and they've taken the data that you've seen and argued that pembrolizumab could be safely reduced dose-wise by 25% each administration. So unlike refined lungs, spreading it out to maintain your therapeutic, but maintain your therapeutic dosing, just actually drop the dose each administration, and that pays for itself. So they're recruiting to that. So it's a dose reduction, quite a very straightforward optimization, thinking about it, but that's fully funded within the Dutch system. And there different design. There was a trial called Sonia, which is a Dutch trial in breast cancer, which instead of giving a combined treatment, which again, treatments had evolved in breast cancer by adding more and more drugs together, but they tested giving 2 of them sequentially with no loss with maintained overall survival. And that was their first example of self-funding trial, because again, giving the 2 drugs sequentially as opposed to both of them for the rest of the patient's life was clearly a lot cheaper. So 2 really good examples from the Dutch. And within the NHS, we should be able to do this, because it's a bit like the Dutch. We've got a single-payer health system. And with NICE and with, say, in cancer, what I know about, the Cancer Drugs Fund, you've got a very active community and a lot of dialogue. So, yeah, hopefully watch this space.
I think we've got a question online, is that right?
Yes, we do. A quick one first. We've got 4 questions. First of all, are there any examples of MAMS-ROCI trials for non-pharma/digital treatments? Do you know of any?
Yeah, so, I mean, depends what you mean by no pharma or digital treatments, but let me think about it. Yes, so there is one where basically we are optimizing the threshold of platelet counts, which we should start giving platelets to patients that come to the ICU. And so it is definitely possible to also do this sort of trials, perhaps even more desirable in these other settings. So it's definitely not confined to just pharma or digital interventions.
Okay, there's 2 for me that I feel I should not ignore. So first of all, in Pedicap, it's a superiority of one treatment over the other tested for any of durations or all durations. The primary outcome is comparing across all durations, so you can think of that as a factorial trial design, really. And so that's going to be the initial analysis, and then there will be extra exploratory analyses looking at the shapes of the curves. And that's kind of linking me to the next question of how realistic is the assumption of the same duration response curves for the 2 drugs? Have you considered different curves? Yes, we will start by looking at the same duration response curve for the 2 drugs, but the trial has been powered so that each drug has been powered separately. So we will also be looking essentially for interactions to see if there is evidence of different response curves for the 2 drugs. And then the final one is to you, Matteo, which is oftentimes the treatment response curve is unknown. Is the curve always a monotonic increasing function? If so, would it be more sensible to take a parametric approach to reduce parameters?
Yeah, so, I mean, yes, if we think that the monotonic assumption really makes sense, then we can also use a monotonic sort of a modeling strategies that assumes monotonicity. And for example, Michelle has talked about the fact that in Pedicap they're actually planning to use fractional polynomials, but forcing monotonicity, for example. So I think if you, for example, if you just use fractional polynomials with just 1 degree with just one power, you're actually forcing monotonicity. So that's definitely possible. It's the usual trade-off between making additional assumptions that might buy you power or sort of interpretability of the results, and having to have, of course, and having perhaps a design that is a little bit less robust if actually the assumptions that we're making is not correct. So I think there are all sorts of trade-offs that have to be made, but it's definitely possible if there is a strong position that monotonicity should be assumed. It is definitely possible to assume it in the analysis.
I think we've got another question here in the room.
Hi, we're discussing as Mike Sharland. I had the sort of honour to co-chair the WHO Essential Medicines List Committee this year, and you were discussing sort of who is really interested in this type of design, and the answer is the WHO Essential Medicines List Committee is very interested in these type of designs. So clearly the MRO criteria, and the Cancer Working Group has been doing a lot of work on trying to sort of kind of prioritise drugs that in middle-income countries, many drugs, of course, there's the whole issues around affordability, and thinking about optimal reduction in dosing and duration, I think has been a major work of the Cancer Working Group, and MRC obviously has worked with India as well. But it is absolutely no secret to come out. You'll have a look at the report of the ML because it comes out later on for the 2023 ML when it comes out later in this year. But there is going to be ever increasingly stronger support globally and internationally for the types of designs that you've been discussing here because the costs for many middle-income countries, of course, is absolutely unaffordable, and yet the demand is there, and the impact on families, as you know very well, in terms of the impact of treatment are very high. So I think the push from the WHO through the ML is going to be a very strong push over the course of the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent comment to end the session. And I think it's about time. So I'd just like to thank all the speakers and there's coffee outside for everyone. Sorry.
Do I ask myself first?
I was almost about to ask.